Welcome back, Choombas, and happy anniversary. Today I'm going to be starting the first of my Orklando amusement park, which is a small food stall, but also a collab with Wulvenkraft. So while my park gets up to code, you should check out his New Ork City, which all started with a tree. I've left a link to that below. First, I need to start with a basic shape that'll help me map out the dimensions of the stall. What makes me excited for this project is that I can do it in sections, making it super modular, and that I can control what elements go into the park. I'm always reading comments and do my best to respond, so if you have any ideas, feel free to share. I imagine orcs don't really think too much about putting things together, so keeping the stall simple should appease Gorka Morka. The roof and walls are all going to have that corrugated metal look to them, so a few loop cuts on a plane in Blender, and then I can bevel them all out to that nice wavy look. To give it some depth, I'll just add a simple extrude. The rear posts are probably the second, or maybe third most detailed part. It's kinda hard to decide. I just stack various size cylinders on top of one another with a main cylinder down the center. I think these were salvaged from some conduit from a ship that crashed in the area. I'll have to get back to you though. I also made a pair of brick pillars for the front, which you don't really see here, but they were made pretty much the same way. I just modeled two small boxes and stacked them appropriately after duplicating them a bunch. Next is the Squig. I had a lot of fun sculpting this little guy. He's super happy to be up there for some reason, and I can only assume he's being fed scraps of grot dogs by the establishment's owner. I started with a cube, I beveled it, I subdivided it, and then I just smoothed and carved out features to my liking. Originally I thought about using a squig I found online, but that didn't really feel right. To make this little squig friend feel more alive, I gave him some teeth, so he's probably the second richest orcoid in that stall. These were simple, just made another cube, duplicated and deformed with the sculpting tools, and then rotated and dropped into place. And now for a tongue. This is really the same as before. I made a cube, sculpted it, and put it into place. The details are done by adding creases and drawing on the surface. Most of the details, though, are too small for my printer to even see, so they didn't translate to the final product. Here, I'm priming the printed and assembled stall. I made sure to separate it into three parts: the roof, the stall base, and the squig head. This was all done in resin, and that was a huge mistake. The base of the stall peeled off the build plate a little, as did one of the edges of the roof. I was left with the remnants of support stuck to it as well. It also meant having to prime the underside to protect the end product from getting over-cured with time. Just a simple wash made with my usual floor polish and paint, mixed with Army Painter War Paint Pure Red and some brown acrylic artist paint. This is the same mixture as my wash. I just added baking soda to it so it would thicken up and create a muddy and sandy consistency. Then I slathered it all over, waited for it to dry, and it helps hide the print error where the corner of the stall lifted and I couldn't get the support skate off. I'll have to re-slice and make at least one more. But what is going on with this feed? Now that the bulk is done, I'll work on the sign with a brown leather war paint for the base of it. Once I'm happy with the coverage, I'll move on to a pure red war paint to pick out the mouth details. I think this little guy's got gingivitis. I then went to paint the fleshy parts with Barbarian Flesh War Paint Air. And for the teeth, I'll use moon dust because it'll give a decayed look. As for the highlights, the color used was Vallejo Light Flesh. I've been experimenting with a comic book or an anime style paint where you don't blend the colors as much. The idea is to create a highlight that is only on upward or light facing surfaces without adding shadows. I spent most of the time on the tongue here because it didn't quite match the look of the rest of the model. I wanted the tongue to have more of a pinkish look because it stuck out further from the roof of the stand, so it would be more in the light of the sun. Last step here is to layer on some dry brushing, and I use moon dust again to give it all, well, a dusty look all over, and then some light flesh again to reinforce it. What we're left with is something I'm incredibly proud to share with you. So if you have a 3D printer, feel free to download the free 3D files and print one for yourself or for a friend, making sure to tag Night City Crafts on Instagram or sharing it on our Discord server. I have a ton of ideas for the project. Not all of them will be 3D printed. So what do you think? What comes next? I want to see what you have to say. Maybe a roller orchestra. Maybe an arcade center consisting entirely